Play that sweet harmonica music.
I love it.
The intro to it's everybody's sound cue that the old time radio hour is kicking off.
Absolutely.
Good evening. How are you, Doss?
I'm great, man. How you doing?
Doing good. Always good to be back. I thought when we, announced this topic and I started researching this guy that we might be able to do this in one episode. We'll see. I'm not as confident now, but we'll see.
Yeah, man, you got a lot of notes. I was counting the page number. I'm like, that's a lot of notes. But like every week when we do stuff and we do multiple episodes on something, like the John Swain, man, my Google Doc notes, the timeline I set up. I mean, I included all of the real important things, but as we go live and I start reading things, the same thing with the Pat Garrett episodes, there was stuff that I had put in the notes that as I came across, I was like, not nearly as important as I thought it was. You know what I mean? I'm like, don't have time for it. And I'm reading all of your notes and I'm all like, but a lot of this is really intriguing and very important. You know what I mean? So yeah, I agree. If we get it done in one, cool, but I would not be opposed for 2 weeks on Mr. John Larn, because I got to admit, I'm very I was going to say is this guy, I feel like I should know him better, and I feel like others should know this name better, but he seems to really fly under the radar. And then I look at his behavior, who he runs with, and I'm like, why isn't this guy's name a little bit more out in the open? Why is it not on people's mouths more? Because as we'll see, I mean, he encounters and works with some very big name people. Yeah. And
he, I'd never heard of him. And when we were kicking off Forever West, one of the first messages I got from folks who listen and old time viewers back from Chasing Billy and everything was from Star Wars MCU.
Right.
Our YouTube viewer, he shows up in the chat a lot, and he was like, hey, you guys should look into John Larn. So I made a note of it, and it takes a while to get to things. As you know, we've got so much stuff going on. I finally got to him a few weeks ago and started researching him and was like, man, this guy, there's a lot to it. This is a story we should know. And so I started putting together notes for a show. And then last month in July, Wild West Extravaganza, he did a good, it's about like a 16-minute episode on John Larn. And so I was talking to him. I was like, I'm glad you did one on Larn, man. He deserves more visibility. And I was talking with Star Wars MCU. I messaged him today and was like, hey, we're finally getting around to Larn. And he said, it's wild because today's his birthday.
Happy birthday, man.
Yeah, happy birthday. And we get to do a John Larn episode based on his recommendation on his birthday. So that's pretty crazy.
Yeah, that's pretty cool. And I was going to say, we'll do better at that. And people message, email, whatever the case may be, in comments in the thread. If you suggest something, we will do the best we can, because we've already got ones that are lined up.
Yeah.
The biggest thing is we'll never run out of episodes. We'll never run out of topics. But sometimes there are weeks, gotta admit, that I prefer doing something that's more in our wheelhouse, because it makes they're all interesting, but when it's something that we have spent a lot of time on, man, my brain just sparks, you know what I mean? And I just start going and I get deep into it. But then you talk, and then I'd start reading these notes on John Larn. I will say this: if anyone has ever purposely decided to research John W. Poe, then you definitely would have come across John Larn, and I have never taken that route.
Me
Poe's very
either.
interesting. Yeah,
I
Poe's very
was
interesting.
shocked.
Yeah, when I got to
Yeah.
that part and you started sharing stuff about John Larn in the last week, I'm like looking, all these names match up. New Mexico, the timeline,
Yes.
is Selman, and I'm like, why don't I know more about this guy? He seems, I'd say he seems a little unbalanced. Would be my first suggestion.
Yeah.
From things I read, almost like he's got a push. It's almost like anybody who just saw his face, even though that's not stated. But like when we get to that point, when they go on that cattle herd, that big cattle herd, and there's just all this death along the way. I just was like, holy cow! Like everybody that they're encountering, there's a gunfight. So I was like, okay, yeah, this guy's very, very trigger happy, volatile. It seems very angry. So yeah. So I mean, let's get cracking.
Yeah, and hopefully folks can learn a bit about John Larn, and they can dig deeper too, and maybe we'll find out even more. I do want to say records are scant when it comes to John Larn, and
sure,
you have a few newspaper mentions, and right after his death, they covered a lot and kind of filled in some gaps about his life, but they still had that word of mouth feel to him. And then when you got to like the 1930s, 1950s, just like any other Western icon, you didn't know quite what to trust. So there's not much out there on Larn. I believe there's probably more if you just know the right misspelling of his last name to look up, because they call him Lawrence, they call him Larn, they call him Laren, lots of it. So there's probably more out there under different last names.
Right.
But I do want to say that there were two books that I was heavily indebted to while researching John, of authors who came before me and did the hard work, and that was Robert DeArmond. He wrote a book called Bravo the Brazos, and John
I've heard
Larn
of it.
Fort Griffin. Great book. I actually went through the whole thing in the past couple weeks, and really good, really well researched, and he did his homework. And then there was kind of the second one was Leon Metz's John Selman, Texas gunfighter, and as we'll find out, John Selman was John Larn's right-hand man. They were really good friends. And so there's a lot in that section on John Larn in this book. So these two guys did a lot of good homework on John Larn and what was going on in that area. And so before we get into it too much, I do want to lay some groundwork on the context, because I didn't know a lot about where he was operating in, and that was basically the town and area of Fort Griffin, Texas, in Shackelford County.
Right. And we know Fort Griffin well.
Yeah. And so in the area, it's the Clear Fork area, the Clear Fork of the Brazos, and that's where John Larn had his ranch. And Shackelford County was fairly new. I believe the county seat eventually ended up in Albany, just in the same county. And then Fort Griffin was kind of like the Dodge City, Deadwood, Tombstone kind of frontier town. And so that's where, if you watch the movie Wyatt Earp, not Tombstone, but the Kevin Costner one, you see Wyatt meet Doc in Fort Griffin. Yeah. So that's pretty cool tie-in. Like, big names passed through there. Pat Garrett, Big Nose Kate, Doc Holliday. It was a lot of, we hear a lot about Deadwood, we hear a lot about Tombstone, but Fort Griffin had its own boom and bustle at the time.
So you've got here. So I'll just kind of, I'll pipe in with some of the stuff that I've been reading. So, okay. So this town, or this area of Clear Fork, Fort Griffin, it was known as the Flat.
Yes.
Okay. So that's cool. Cause when I was reading that, I was like, did you find newspaper articles or anything where it was just like a kind of an internal town reference?
So, that's just what they called it. Fort Griffin was up on the hill, and I guess this flat area, this is a
Oh,
depiction of Fort Griffin in the
yeah,
1870s. It's just kind of this flat area, and it's kind of neat to see how like it's not a grid of buildings. You know, if this is a faithful rendering,
sure.
you've got this like half moon just line of buildings here coming up, and these dotted houses here. But like, yeah, that may have been the area as it looked back, you know, as it was starting to
Yeah.
flesh out in its frontier debauchery. Um,
And
but yeah,
you remember in Young Guns too, Poe asked Garrett, "What's that?" And he's all buffalo scrum from my first big kill, a big old bull near Fort Griffin.
I didn't make
I
that
just remember
connection.
it. I was remembering the Fort Griffin. Yeah, I was like, okay, so he's mentioned it in dialogue. Okay,
That's
I had to
cool.
throw that in there because I just remembered. He's like, yeah, big old bull near Fort Griffin.
Yeah, Star Wars MCU says that Dave Rudabaugh passed through Fort Griffin too. It was a hot
Yeah,
place, man. It was
yeah, it does seem like it because you got here that it ranked with Tombstone, Dodge City, and
yeah,
Deadwood as one of the meanest towns in the West.
yeah,
I believe it. You got that. You got that cast of characters making trips through there and residing there. Yeah, I would
yeah.
imagine so. So, talk to me about what do we know about birth, childhood stuff. Is there anything that's real solidified on him, or is he kind of a ghost when it comes to that?
Yeah, not at all. Records are basically non-existent up to a certain point. I do want to say that John Larn was remembered kind of differently according to who you talk to. I know that's true of anyone's case, but it seems like folks in Fort Griffin and Shackelford County really tried to like erase the memory of John Larn, and I think folks will find out why. But he was heavily associated with the Reynolds and the Matthews families, who were big ranching families in the area. And these are two cowboys from Fort Griffin. I found these guys in Faces of Fort Griffin. The jail art center, I think the old jail art center has this collection called Cowboys Faces of Fort Griffin. And I thought that was indicative of how people would have looked in John Larn's time. But Sally Reynolds, she was a family member. She was in the same family as Larn.
Is this Sally Ann Reynolds Matthews?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so she's his sister-in-law, right?
Yes, it was John's sister-in-law. She remembered Larn as young, handsome, dashing, and with manners that could never be offensive to a lady. The very model of a gentleman. Larn shunned alcohol. He didn't do tobacco. He didn't cuss. And he just, in contrast to the average frontiersman, she said he was just a perfect gentleman. Okay. Yeah. So he had this effect on women. He was very polite. But Robert DeArmond in his book noted that in her celebrated history of the Reynolds and Matthews families called Interwoven, I found this on Archive and went through it. A Pioneer Chronicle by Sally Reynolds Matthews.
Dude,
she never
that's
once,
cool.
Yeah. She never once mentions Larn.
Really?
She does not mention John Larn. So yeah, there's something going on there. And this guy, this is John Larn's nephew, Watt Matthews.
And I was about to say an interesting contrast, but there's correlation and contrast. So this is Watt, and he says that John was a charmer with many attributes of a gentleman, but he was also an outlaw, a cow thief, and a killer.
That's right. So there's the reason.
So this is Watt right here on the horse?
That's Watt Matthews.
Wow.
Yeah, and the Portals to Texas History website has this like 70-page scrapbook called Remembering Watt Matthews. This guy was a interesting character, and there was tons of pictures, articles about all the things this Watt Matthews guy did. And he's a pretty principal character in that area.
Future episode.
Yeah, could be.
Yeah, we'll look into Watt Matthews, see what's up with him. That's a good picture too, man.
Yep. And apparently this here is John Larn. And apparently Leon Metz discovered this picture. He said it was a metal engraving on a block of wood owned by a preacher in Roby, Texas, that was said to be an image of John Larn. Thought to be a daguerreotype made in 1878. So I'm inclined to think this is the only picture of John Larn. But even then, it's like according to the word of this preacher. So
And
Could be.
it kind of looks slightly like a sketch.
Yeah, a lot of them
A,
did back then. They would charcoal
little
these
bit.
things.
Yeah, I was gonna
And
say.
and there's another picture I found in that same place, that old jail art center, Faces of Fort Griffin collection. They
Okay.
said this guy's John Larn, and you even see
Hmm.
at the bottom it says John Larn, Shackelford County Sheriff, 1876-77. I don't know, man. He looks really young, and of course
Yeah.
Larn was young, but I don't see a big similarity.
No,
I mean, I don't know, man.
that's interesting. But
Yeah.
I'll tell you what, this one that you have up right now, this like
Mhm.
not that guy, the bow tie guy, does this guy right here looks far more like someone who would be, keeping
Yeah.
time with John Selman. The
Right.
other guy looks like he manages a horse stable or he works at a bank or something.
Yeah, I'm just not sold on this picture.
That's interesting.
Yeah. So, but
Okay.
again, that might be, and it might not be. I mean, maybe there's no picture of John Larn, but I think at least the consensus is nowadays that other one is John
Right.
Larn. So,
Well, it makes him even more intriguing because
yeah,
really all you have really is Metz saying that a preacher in Roby, Texas said that this image
yeah,
is John Larn. That's the
right.
connection. That's
I
it.
mean, I wish he would have told us why he thinks that
Sure.
that preacher should know who it is.
Exactly.
Yeah, but so getting into his life, I just wanted to clear those things first. But starting with John Larn, we don't have anything on his early life. So
Yeah.
up to the year 1870, we have no information, no documented information on him. And that alone drives me crazy, and that's going to fuel future hours of research because I need to know.
Yep.
But it seems that he told most people, including his wife, that he was born March 1st, 1849 in Alabama. So multiple sources give that Alabama
Right.
source.
I'm seeing that here. So a lot of residents in Shackelford, they all recall he said he was born in Alabama. So you've got some supporting information there.
Yeah.
Mobile.
That's at least we can say that that's what he told people.
Right.
Yeah, but some even recall he told others he ran away from home as a boy, went to Mobile, Alabama, worked as a butcher boy there, and peddled newspapers on trains. And so that's from D. Armand's book. We don't know. But he told another guy, Finn Reynolds, that he went to Colorado. So he went from Alabama to Colorado, and he worked there for a rancher in a place called Patterson's Hollow. And one day the rancher didn't pay him. So he decided to take one of the rancher's horses and he left. I think Doc Scurlock did something like that with Chisholm, didn't he?
I believe so.
So the rancher caught up with Larn near Rocky Ford, pulled a gun and called for Larn to stop, and Larn pulled his own gun and shot the rancher. Now he told someone else that he just shot the rancher and stolen a horse without all that justified backstory. So again, I've combed the Colorado papers. I've searched for Larn. I've searched all, incidents taking place near Rocky Ford, Patterson's Hollow. Never found a thing. And you would think, some kind of killing like that would instigate an article. I've searched for horse thieves in the area, but no, there's no mention of it. So again, is he telling people this stuff just to build his own history, just to create a reputation for himself? He then says, on the run, he goes down to New Mexico, and he's in New Mexico, and a sheriff walks up to him, and he puts a pistol against his chest, and he says, "Your name is Larn, and you're my prisoner." So he's wanted for this Colorado thing. And Larn looks over the sheriff's shoulder like a classic, "Hey, what's that behind you?" move. And the sheriff turns, and Larn pulls his own gun and shoots and kills him. So he claims he kills a New Mexico sheriff sometime in, I don't know, 1867 to 1870. And surely that would make the papers, right? I mean,
right.
Yeah. We should be able to find information on this if it's true.
Yeah, you should be able to find an article about a sheriff who's so gullible and dumb that he actually turned the other way and someone shot him in the head. But I was going to say, yeah, you're out here going, I shot a sheriff in the face. I shot a sheriff. I named a territory. Yeah, there should be something in connection, but
Right.
I am seeing a pattern already, like you said, this reputation, because you said he does not appear kind of like, dealing with John Swain and Jesse
Right.
Evans. It doesn't appear until this year, and then you have to be 100% sure that we're talking about the same guy,
Yeah.
especially when there's nothing on him in all the years before. But what you do have before he's even 21 years old in 1870 is you've got stories of
Mhm.
him committing some atrocities, but only he is telling these stories. It seems like.
Right. And I just feel like personally, my suspicion is that John Larn was the kind of guy to keep his past pretty locked up, and I don't think he would have had any scruples about lying uh, to people to buttress his
Sure,
reputation.
sure.
I'm not even convinced his name was John Larn because I've not found anything related to a John Larn in Alabama or anywhere else. There's a family in Alabama that has a John Larn as a son, and many people on Ancestry will connect this John Larn to ours.
Yeah.
But I do believe now my subscription for Ancestry ran out. I'll have to check it again when it's back up. But I do believe I tracked that gentleman down in the 1880 or 1870 census, and that John Larn is traceable in the same area with his family. So that is not our John Larn, and
Yeah.
really that's the only possible candidate there was. And so this guy's name could not be, it might not be John Larn. It might be Lawrence. It might be John Lauren, McLaren, Laren.
Yeah.
I mean, so many options, especially
Yeah.
if you think about Southern dialect. You're down there in Texas, New Mexico, and if your name is Lawrence or Lauren or Laren, I can see how that could get drawn out to Larn, and in
Yeah.
fact, in many memoirs, they spell his name Laren or Lauren, Loren or Laren. So
Yeah.
yeah, there could be even a dialect thing. Maybe it's not an alias. Maybe it's just something that has transformed by dialect. But something's up. We can't find this guy. We need to. Um,
Very
it,
interesting.
it bugs me the same way Billy the Kid's origins bugs me. Like we should have documentation on this guy.
Yeah, especially like I said, he's putting out that he committed some crimes and he's given
Right.
territory. Yeah, so yeah, you would be able to find something. And then I see here, which is very interesting. We know how this works, right? So the 1870 census, he shows up first time on record and he is boarding in the home of Susan Reynolds Newcomb.
Yeah.
And basically we know how this kind of works. It means that he kind of got lucky probably, and he just happened to be on the property when the census taker was there.
Yeah.
Because if the census taker came by 2 days later and Larn wasn't there, then there's no Larn in 1870, right? That's yeah. So he just happened to be there.
This is the first time he shows up, 21 years old.
Right.
He already has experience as a cattleman, so he's been doing the thing. I mean, he's definitely been living the life.
Yeah.
I don't know that I believe everything he's told people, but he's definitely been working as a cowhand. He's experienced at this. He's staying with the Reynolds people. Benjamin Reynolds at the bottom there is Susan's brother. So he's working his way into the family. People are impressed by him. He knows how to do his work. But this is it. This is the first mention on record of John Larn, and that's in 1870.
1870. Okay.
Yeah, and that gives us 8 years of documented history on John Larn, which it turns out to be enough. But yeah, the next year in 1871, this guy named Bill Hayes, a rancher, decides he wants to send a herd of his cattle to Colorado to sell. And he picks John Larn to be the trail boss. So he sees this 21, 22-year-old kid and thinks he knows enough about handling this business that I'm going to send him to Colorado as the trail boss. And Larn has traversed the Goodnight Loving Trail before, and that's the trail they're using to send it to Colorado.
Yeah.
And he's already done considerable work with the Reynolds brothers. Now, another guy went on the trip with him to Colorado. His name was Henry Comstock.
Yes.
And most of the information we have comes from the notes and the diary entries that Henry left behind that were unpublished for the longest time. And they were finally, I guess, made public. But he leaves an interesting account of the trail drive to Colorado with John Larn.
Okay. Yeah, so everything that I read about this cattle drive that happens all comes from the memoirs of Henry Comstock. Okay. Yeah. So, and he was there.
Yeah. And riding along. So there's John Larn, there's Henry Comstock. There's a guy named Bill Bush, whose real name was Delbert Clement. And he's telling people, he's telling people that he killed a man to avenge his father's death. And he showed Comstock this notch on his pistol and he said, it's the first of many I intend to put there. Okay.
Oh boy.
Riding along with Bill Bush is a man who some people may recognize. His name is Frank Freeman. Frank Freeman was quite a well-known denizen of Lincoln in Lincoln County, New Mexico. He went on a tear with Charlie Beaudry in the streets of Lincoln in 1875.
They did. Whose house did they shoot?
They shot the place up and tried to get Chisholm to come out of Alexander McSween's house. So Frank Freeman.
Yes, they did.
Frank Freeman then went to, on another occasion, I believe was it the Wortley or was it another eatery at the time?
I don't believe it was the Wortley,
no,
but yes, it was in Lincoln.
Yeah, there was a black cavalry officer sitting there. And
yes.
He wanted to eat with Freeman, and Freeman was viciously racist and got mad and shot the soldier.
That's right. That was it.
Didn't die then, but they went after him. And George Coe helped hide Frank Freeman. And Brady came and arrested Freeman and Coe. And I think Beaudry or Skurlock, one of them ran off and escaped. But and then George Coe nursed a healthy dislike of Brady because of the way he was treated when he was arrested with Frank Freeman. So, and Frank Freeman eventually was shot in an attempt to escape from those guys. So Frank Freeman was killed in Lincoln and is buried up on the hill, I believe, in Lincoln.
Yeah.
Now, that same Frank Freeman is going on the ride with John Larn.
Back in 1871.
That's right. Freeman was the oldest one in the crew. He was the only one that had a beard. There was a guy named Bill Hill, and there were 3 Wilsons. Billy Wilson, not the one we know about. Charlie Wilson and Jim Wilson, not related to each other.
So none of them related to each other. Wow.
Wilson must be a popular name. You know what else is that Billy Wilson was also from Ohio. This one,
really?
Yeah, just like Billy the Kid's gang member, Billy Wilson. Another guy named. Go ahead.
Yeah, I was going to say the Billy Wilson. I feel like that is it's more common in the Old West than we think, because I think it was a well-used alias.
It seems
as well.
Like it.
Yeah, there's too many Billy Wilsons that pop up. I think there was one that was roaming around Arizona for a while, and it was an alias. He had a complete name that was nothing, wasn't William, it wasn't Billy, but he went by, Billy Wilson. And then there's the constant changing of the Billie and the LLY. But that's like the 3rd or 4th Billy Wilson that I've now come across.
I think Billy Wilson of Lincoln County his real name was really David Anderson, and that the alias was Billy Wilson.
Yes. That has always been my belief. Yeah.
There was another guy riding in Larn's crew called Font Twombly. I think that is the coolest name that anyone has ever had in my Wild West studies. I envy the man for having the name Font Twombly. If I could be, I might consider changing my name legally to Font Twombly. That's like,
okay. When I read it in the notes, yes, it was funny, and I kind of like snickered a little bit, but it wasn't as funny, just me reading, as it was you saying it.
Yeah.
That is a very funny name, especially if you're saying it properly.
I'm Font Twombly, and I'm here.
It almost sounds like it sounds like you're insulting somebody.
Yeah.
In a way. Hey, you know that James? Yeah, dude, he's a real Font Twombly.
Font Twombly.
I don't like talking to that guy at all. Why? He's a Font Twombly. That's an interesting name, man. Interesting. Yeah. And a guy named.
We're gonna have the guy T-shirts now that say Font Twombly.
Font Twombly, and then put it all as one word.
He's exactly how you would picture him. Comstock described him as having the looks of refinement, rather delicate in appearance, and very quiet and reserved in manner. Twombly was apparently from a highly respected Detroit banking family. So you can't get more Font Twombly than that.
Yep, father's a banker.
It sounds like a hobbit.
Yeah, it sounds like so many different names, characters, and weird fantasy books or something. Yeah, that's
honestly, reading about Font Twombly is one of the best things about this whole John Larn rabbit hole I went down. Font Twombly, I mean, it's just making my day talking about Font.
Yeah.
Font so another guy was riding with him named Tom Atwell. Tom Atwell actually became a pretty close companion of John Larn. We'll see Tom down the road a little bit. Okay. Anyway, it was the crew. They left Fort Griffin on September 10th, 1871, and they headed in the direction of Fort Concho. Fort Concho was where you went to get all your cattle inspected when you were heading out of the state. So they were supposed to go there and have their cattle inspected before going on to Colorado or heading off on the trail. Larn drove the herd west of the trail, saying he needed to find better grass. So they wandered west of the trail that led to Fort Concho, looking for better grass. Then Larn says, I think we're lost. And they wander around for a bit and they find the trail. They get back on the trail way farther west of Fort Concho. And Larn tells his men, well, now that we're this far, I'm not going to waste time going back to Fort Concho for inspection. And so it was very apparent to Comstock and the others, apparently, that he intentionally skipped inspection. He didn't want to fool with it. He made calls like that. And honestly, to people like Bill Hayes, who he was driving cattle for, that was good business sense. He was kind of being unethical, but making good calls for, the man's business. And that's probably why he appointed him foreman for this. But anyway, they went on, they skipped inspection. They ended up along the Pecos River into New Mexico, and they come to this place called Horsehead Crossing. And
yes, indeed.
They're camped there on one side of the Pecos, and these two Mexicans come along on the other side of the river, and they start shouting to Larn and his crew across the river, and they're shouting in Spanish, and Comstock says none of the crew can understand them because they didn't speak Spanish. And so the two Mexicans just keep walking. They go on their way, and John Larn stews on it for a bit. And just a few minutes later, he goes, you know what? We shouldn't let those fellows get away. And so he and Bill Bush and Frank Freeman and Bill Hill, they all mount up their horses and they ford the river and go after him. And they catch up to him, and the two Mexicans start speaking in Spanish again real fast and trying to, tell him something. And without saying anything, Larn and the other men just open fire. And one of the Mexicans is killed instantly. The other dives off his horse and goes into the river, and they just keep shooting until, he sinks out of sight. And they take the horses and saddles back to camp. And I think that's the first sight we see of, I'm sorry. Matt Kern says Tom Atwell's real name was Billy Wilson. That's good. But that's the first example we see of John Larn's just merciless, hey, there's these two guys, we should go kill them. And
that's what I was wondering. Do you think it's I don't know. I mean, I was reading that too. And when I was bringing up before about they had already gone, right? And then a few minutes go by, and then he has to think about it, and he's like, we shouldn't let those fellows get away, but get away from them because they saw them.
Yeah, I don't know.
Why would that matter? And if it was really just because they wanted ammo, they wanted provisions, they wanted the horses, okay, because that's what that's what outlaws and bandits did then. But to say we shouldn't let them get away, Yeah, it's interesting. I don't know. I'm
I
almost kind
think
of a
what I
loss if he wanted to just no, he just wanted to kill him, because
yeah,
we can argue and debate that a bunch and not come to a real conclusion because we don't know what's going on in his head.
right,
But if that is what he actually says, what Comstock says, he's just
right.
we shouldn't let them get away. I oh man, it's
My personal
yeah,
opinion, and I think we'll see this as it goes on. I have to admit that John Larn, like Frank Freeman, was probably very racist. And to me, I think we ought not let them get away means we ought not let this opportunity to kill a couple Mexicans pass. Um,
ah
I really think that there was a lot of racism uh, in Larn's
sure.
motivation when it comes to a lot of these things. Um, but yeah, so they kill these two Mexicans and just throw them in the river, and they begin moving on again, and they notice some cavalry following them. Uh, and they find out it's led by a corporal from Fort Concho. So Larn suspects that they've learned that there is this crew driving this herd that skipped inspections. So he tells his men to, clean your guns, get your fastest horse. He's fully expecting to fight these cavalrymen instead of, submit to the law and go back and get inspected. So they ride back, and the corporal, Comstock's diary says that he was able to assess the situation and see that he was in a bad spot. So the corporal was just like, no, y'all go do what you want to do. He asked Larn for some fresh meat. They gave him some supplies, and the cavalrymen didn't press the issue. And so they took off. And so that was another, Larn was fully prepared to kill government troops just for the hell of it because he didn't want to fool with inspection.
Wow. Yeah, it sounds like he was ready to be like, yeah, get your guns ready, get prepped. We're gonna go Young Guns One style.
Yeah,
We're in a house all boarded up and locked down by ourselves, and there's a bunch of soldiers, but screw it, we're gonna go down blazing.
yep,
Yeah. So, and it says here that the corporal, when they caught up and Larn gave him the meat, the corporal denied that they were actually after
yes,
Larn. He denied they were looking for him.
yep. I forget the reason. I don't know if I put it in the notes. He I don't know if he gave a reason for said what they were really doing, but Comstock did note that it was later confirmed that they were indeed after them for not getting the cattle inspected, and they just
Right.
let them go because they saw what, maybe they saw it in Larn's eyes, but yeah, they saw what was going to happen. But anyway, they drove the herd on, and sometime in October, they got to drinking, as many a cowman will on the frontier. And the Billy Wilson of this story, he made a remark, and the remark was kind of directed at Bill Bush. And they're all drunk and feeling brave, and Billy Wilson says, I'm a good fighter, and he's kind of looking at Bill Bush, saying like, basically, I can take you. And Bill Bush, feeling like Wilson was aiming the remark at him, replies that, well, I don't brag about how I fight, but when I do, I fight from the belt. Well, Billy Wilson said, that's fine with me. And he draws a knife, and Bill Bush draws a gun, and he shoots Billy Wilson through the lungs. And so
End of
Comstock,
story.
yeah, Comstock is a way off, and he says he hears a shot, and he hears this awful cry. And he rides up and he sees Wilson on the ground, and then Bush shoots him again because he's basically dying slowly. So Bush just kills him.
Yeah.
And they bury Billy Wilson, and they move on. Just one more night on the trail. And so, again, that's Bill Bush. He was he was like a right-hand man with Larn on this ride, and he's just as bad an hombre as John Larn. So it shows you the kind of company he keeps, and the company that he prefers to keep are people like Bill Bush. So
Yeah. It kind of sounds like Yeah, sorry. It kind of sounds like he needs someone. He can't have a bunch of people that are thinking the complete opposite way that he does.
No.
You know what I mean? Because he'd end up being forced to kill all the guys that were with
Yes.
him because they'd be
Yeah.
like, dude, he's out of his mind.
Yes, he needs people with just as flexible an ethics system, you
Sure.
know.
Sure.
So, yeah, about 80 miles east of Las Vegas. Again, Larn and Bush are in the lead. They're driving these cattle, and they come across a young Mexican sheep herder on his horse with his flock of sheep, and they just take off after him. And the sheep herder sees him pursue, and he takes off. So they're in this chase. They can't catch up to him, so they shoot the horse. The horse's leg takes a hit, and they go down. And John Larn and Bill Bush kill the Mexican sheep herder and the injured horse. They don't take the sheep. They don't take anything. It was just a purely kill for sport kind of thing. And again, it's a Mexican sheep herder. And it seems to me like they don't do this when they encounter, Anglos.
Right.
They
right.
seem, again, the common thread.
Yeah, and they didn't rob him. They didn't take anything. They're just like, and the sheep just go ahead and wander the pasture, go on. Yeah. So again, yeah, you're right. So you got 3 different instances already with, Mexican riders, Mexican sheep herders. Yeah, so you could be onto something there. And clearly you're probably not going to, at least I wouldn't think so. I've never come across something that just blatantly states that about an outlaw and the way that they're killing. I don't know if I've ever seen an old 1880s newspaper article that says killing because he just doesn't like Mexicans, or killing because he's racist, right? You know what I mean? It would have to be a very underlined motive that people would be like, well, let's look at this, but you'd have to really think about it. And back then, so many,
it might have been just so implicit back then.
Right. It's so normal. Exactly. It's just like, well, everyone is, we all are, because we're Anglos, right? Exactly. Right. So, yeah. So that could be the same thought process.
If you listen to the Sophie Poe interviews, the way she talks about Pat Garrett's wife, the way she talks about Mexicans and that, you're like, Sophie, you're a little out of line.
I know. When she called her what she called her, I kind of like hit pause and I was like, what was that? Like I'd go back 10 seconds, play again. I'm like, oh, she did say that. Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. That's interesting.
Yeah. So that's really what I think it is. So they're getting close. They cross over right into Colorado. And at about that time, they're joined by Bill Hayes, the guy who owns the cattle and who hired John Larn.
Hired him.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
Bill Hayes has traveled to Colorado via stage, and he rides down and meets his crew on the way. And they counted the cattle, and there's a lot more than what Larn set out from Fort Griffin with. Hayes had probably about 400 cattle when they left, and now he had about 1,700. So Larn has gathered up cattle along the way for Hayes. And again, to show you how this is kind of like reverse ethics, but Hayes is pleased about that. He's like, this is why he hired him. So again, that's John Larn showing his capitalistic, ambition. So this is a good trait. So it's November. They've made it across into Colorado, but they got to spend the winter in some cabins right over the state line. Here's another tale. Bill Bush, the notorious killer right-hand man, he gets bored. He rides in a Trinidad, and he just steals a horse from a livery stable at gunpoint, and he takes off. The sheriff forms a posse, and they go after him. They pursue him for a few days. And Bush is just having a good time in the hills with this horse. Now, a few days later, after Larn has talked to the sheriff and found out what's happened, they convince Bush to return the horse. So Bush approaches Font Twombly, and he says, Font Twombly, will you write me a letter? So Font Twombly, I just want to say Font Twombly as much as I can. Font Twombly writes a letter to the livery owner. And says, Bill Bush says, basically, I love me a good horse, and I've had a good ride with this one, and now I'm returning it. Please don't come after me. And so they ride into town, return the horse, and give the livery stable owner the letter. And that's the end of it. Nothing more's done. So they're making kind of a rowdy name for themselves in Trinidad. Well, it goes a little bit more south because they're still in the area. They have a routine now of going into Trinidad and drinking and having fun. Larn, the Wilson non-brothers, which are now Charlie, another Wilson, Fayette Wilson, and George. Tom Atwell, a guy named Payne Mason. Font Twombly now has an alias. Font Twombly's going by Font Parkinson.
Font Parkinson.
Frankly, breaks my heart. Okay, I hate that he had to change his name. And a man named a man they call One Arm Bill. They go into Trinidad drinking and gambling, and on this particular night, it's February 2nd, 1872. On this particular night, was it Bill? Let me see. George Wilson, okay, one of the Wilsons, gets in his head that he's been robbed. He's in the Exchange Saloon. He's been gambling, and all of a sudden he starts shouting that he's been robbed of $6 or $7. He leaves the saloon. He gets his friends, and they all come back. And he pulls his gun, and he's saying, "Somebody's going to die for robbing me." The saloon owner says, "I'll give you $7. Just calm down and leave." And he goes, "No,
$7, man."
Sheriff Juan Tafoya, the sheriff of Trinidad, comes in. He steps up to George to calm him down, and George takes his pistol and points it right at the sheriff's head. Sheriff grabs the barrel of the gun and goes to move it away, but George fires too quick and shoots the sheriff in the head. And they said that the sheriff jumped up and staggered, and his own pistol went off in his hand. And then he fell down, and he was shot 2 more times before he even hit the ground. So George Wilson has killed the sheriff in Trinidad. And now him and John Larn, Bill Bush, the whole company are pursued back to their camp by a posse of enraged citizens. But John Larn organizes the camp to show such a resistance that the posse men know they can't fight or capture them, so they retreat. So that's insane. John Larn shows some good salt there. You know, in the midst of all that, he gets back to camp and he organizes all that. But they send troops from Fort Union, kind of like a Lincoln County thing, like we got to send in the troops to keep order. But Larn and his folks have already fled the area. So that's kind of like how John Larn's time in Colorado comes to an end with the killing of the sheriff. Yeah. So we see
it's a lot of dead people, and check it out. The sheriff, also another Mexican.
Again, it's a trend. So Bill Hayes, you know, boss man Bill Hayes, he can't find a buyer for his cattle. So he's got this extended time hanging out in Colorado. So he needs to take care of his business back home in Shackelford County. So he gives John Larn power of attorney to handle his business back home. He's like, take care of my cattle back home. And so John Larn leaves Colorado with Bill Hayes' blessing to take care of his property and with the legal power of attorney to do so. On the way, John Larn stops in New Mexico, and somehow he runs into this guy named John Hitson. And John Hitson is another well-known Texan from the same area, Shackelford County. He's in with a lot of ranchers, and the Stock Association has given John Hitson the authority to go into New Mexico and retrieve stolen stock and horses, a large number of them that have been stolen from ranchers in Texas by Comanche Indians. And so Hitson goes into New Mexico at this time, and he's hiring gunfighters to work with him to take this stolen stock back. And so we're talking Hitson's acting in the name of about 200 Texas ranchers in the Fort Griffin area. And the governor of Texas has even given him a letter of authorization. And so with that, he's hiring all these people. And some of the people, he ends up hiring John Larn, who's passing through on his way to Texas.
Right.
Some of the other people working with Hitson in this endeavor are Clay Allison, the Wilson boys that travel with John, Tom Atwell, again, and 2 brothers, named Thomas and John Selman. And so
there they are.
Yeah, and so John Larn, no doubt, meets not only Clay Allison, but this is where he runs into Thomas and John Selman.
Wow.
And so that's a pivotal point in the story.
Sure.
For John.
Sure. Those are some crazy men all in the yeah, dude, working in the same.
Yeah, and they do the job. They get the job done. And John Hitson is praised for his results, and they go back to Texas. But this is where John and the two Johns, John Selman and John Larn, meet, and the friendship begins. And so there is some documentation on March 5th, 1872. The commanding officer at Fort Stanton, we're all familiar with Fort Stanton, receives a letter from a Lieutenant Sartle, and he's saying that a band of notorious horse thieves is now congregated at or near the mouth of the Rio Hondo. Their names are Chuck, Johnny Lawrence, which is John Larn, Charlie Wilson, Thomas Rhodes, and Thomas Atwell. So even while they're working for Hitson in New Mexico, retrieving stolen stock, they're also building up this reputation of horse thieves. So you have to wonder, like, what other side quests are they doing in New Mexico right now?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very, very busy men, though, too, at the same time. Like,
dude,
and you wonder, okay, so it sounds like legitimate working for Hitson, reclaiming these animals. And so, again, you kind of have to now start to contemplate, this is seriously about their angst, I believe, and their just need to do something.
Yes, absolutely.
Whether it's of course it all ends up being murder, or theft. So whether or not that process in their mind is like, is going to kill someone, I was going to say it does seem like that is the thought process. Some guys are just like in the Old West, like they want to rob, right? They just want to rob. They want to steal horses. They want to steal provisions. They want to steal hay. They just want to steal. It's that need. Yeah. What's the kleptomaniac? You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's kind of like thing. It's this seed inside them. So even a good undertaking, like, hey, we're here to retrieve stolen property, it gets out of hand.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. A simple, not necessarily a simple job, but it also seems like, do you think Hitson was at least somewhat aware of the kind of men he was dealing with? Because you got Clay Allison there, but did the Selman brothers, how many years? Because John Selman was also a lawman too, so it made me wonder the timeline. How long before he starts? Twisting things up in his mind and starts killing people.
Yeah, but I mean, I think again, I don't know how much Hitson would have kind of under the table approved of a lot of this stuff, and if they were stealing horses and adding to his stock, I don't know if he would have complained. Just like Bill Hayes not having a problem with skipping inspection and the increase of his herd as they move toward Colorado. It's like a lot of these ranchers and these respectable people also kind of winked at the unethical behavior of some of their hired people. But yeah, I mean, it was a weird world, it still is, but back then, man, I think sometimes we're all aware of the bridge, the vast chasm between cultures of, like, I've got my culture and I might not understand the behavior of someone from another culture, but I think that applies temporally too. Like, I don't know how fully we can understand the motivations and actions and behaviors of someone in the 19th century or the 18th century, or, it's like, it's hard to wrap your mind around their mindset, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we've encountered that, right, where we tried to think about specifics. Why didn't Billy leave the territory after he escaped Lincoln and killed Bell and Ollinger? Why did this person do that? Right there, there's a constant pondering of the elements of that time. There's no way you can leave them out. I mean, you could get killed for stealing someone's horse.
Right.
But I
Yeah.
guess now in 2026, though, you can definitely get killed for stealing someone's car. So,
DeArmond
you
even
know,
says in his John Larn book that horse thievery was looked on much worse than murder back then.
it seems that way too, right? Because we had some very interesting examples during the Pat Garrett episodes of people getting pardoned after killing someone for a couple years, right? And
Right.
there's got connections. I've got friends. I know people.
Yeah.
Yeah, a lot of people. Dude, Chavez, remember?
Oh
He gets
yeah.
pardoned. He gets pardoned
Big
after he's
time.
been in prison. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
So it does seem that, but horse thievery, no, we're going to put you out in the gallows and hang you right now, or they'll just go out and take you out into a tree, right?
Yeah, and that may have been, Wild West Extravaganza recently had this this post or this short entry where he talked about how there wasn't a lot of legal punishment of horse stealing. You talk about like hanging was not a legal punishment for horse thievery. So I wonder if a lot of times horse thieves were victims of mob justice, if you want to call it that, because the legal punishments were seen as too lenient almost. And so it just got out of hand from that.
Yeah. And we kind of have to put our feet into their boots for a minute and think about how important horses were.
Yeah. Oh man.
And to families. I mean, they were a very important commodity. You know what I mean? You had to have a horse, and it was a big deal, let alone maybe a personal bond that you might have with the horse. But even if you did or didn't have that bond, and it does seem, you can see that in books. In certain situations, there's a lot of little skirmishes in Lincoln right before the 5-day battle happens. And there's a few of those things have to do with horses. So, it's a very a constant and consistent crime.
Mm-hmm.
And it's very interesting that you just said, so I've always been under the impression, and I wonder how many that are listening right now or thought the same thing. I thought horse thievery was a punishable by death offense. I legitimately did think that, for at least for a period of time.
I know that, like Nicholas Provencio, for instance, the guy that ran with the boys and Jesse Evans, he was caught and he was sentenced to 5 years in the penitentiary for horse theft. And that, I think 5 years was a typical punishment for horse thievery. Yep. And a lot of times they would get paroled off and stuff. But a lot of times they were just let go too, before they even got sentenced. So that may have been a motivation. But so they leave New Mexico. The New Mexico papers kind of started getting critical of Hitson too. So his public opinion score was dropping fast. And so the hired guns kind of drifted in their own directions, and Hitson returned with his horses and his cattle. And John Larn made the decision to return to Texas as well. So he heads back to Shackelford County. And when he gets there, he meets up with John Selman and John's brother Thomas. So John has come back to Shackelford as well. He'd been there before. So they're back. John Larn's 23 at this time. And John Selman was 10 years older than him, 33 years old. So they started calling John Selman Old John to distinguish between Selman and Larn. But he'd returned to Shackelford and the Clear Fork area after having been gone for some time and was highly respected by everyone there. And Larn had strong relationships with the Matthews, Reynolds, and Hitson families. And up to this time, John Selman had no criminal record or no reputation of criminality. And a lot of folks have speculated that his association and his friendship with John Larn is what set him on the path that made him the devil John Selman that we know him to be. Leon Metz notoriously called John Larn Selman's evil genius.
Wow.
Yeah. So
that's very interesting. What's your take on that?
It makes sense to me. I mean, it
yeah,
seems to be that John Selman was a fairly upright, he's married at this time. He has
right. He's
kids.
got kids. Yeah,
He's traveling with his brother. It seems pretty, he had been to Shackelford County before. When he came back with Larn, everybody remembered him well. I mean, it really does seem that Larn was kind of like his gateway to more nefarious things. And it's a shame because John Larn becomes one bad guy. And to think that if he had never met Larn, would that ever have happened? Yeah, I don't know.
that's very interesting. Yeah, I mean, wow. Well, because I know the basics about Selman, right? I know more about what he was doing as a rather unbalanced criminal, and you know what I mean. Like I knew he was was he a marshal? He was a marshal, wasn't he? Didn't
At one
Selman?
point, yep, he was even a lawman in Shackelford County.
That's right. Okay, because I was going to say, so it's interesting. And at 33 years old, 10 years older, but a 23-year-old John Larn already has quite a resume.
Yeah.
And so that's interesting. And so they connect along this timeline, and then over the next few years, is that where we're going to see John Selman start to kind of diverge down his evil path. So maybe there is some truth to that, because then after that, clearly Selman never goes back down the correct path, I don't think. I mean,
no,
was he a lawman when because John Selman, of course,
I believe he was a lawman afterwards too, just not a
when he killed Hardin. Was he a lawman when he killed Hardin?
I believe so. Yeah, I think so. I can't be sure, but I think so.
Yeah.
I haven't looked into Selman yet, honestly, but just the little that I looked at researching Larn, it's possible. I do want to show folks, this is the trail from Fort Griffin to Trinidad that they would have taken. Starting in Fort Griffin, you see Fort Concho down here for the inspection, and then they get back on the trail and head up the Pecos, passing right through Fort Sumner, and then crossing over into Trinidad. Pretty cool. And this is Hitson, the man who organized the...
Look at that beard.
Yes.
Dude. Yeah. Dude, his head is not even big enough to handle the weight of that beard.
I know. I wonder if Font Twombly could grow a beard like that if he tried.
Who do we got here?
John Hitson, again, later in life.
Okay.
Yeah.
Nice.
Yeah, very cool. There's the man himself, John Selman.
There's Selman.
Devil eyes.
I think that's another thing too, man. There's some of these certain photos, because not all of Selman's photos have his eyes looking that way, but that one, once you're introduced to that photo of him, I got to admit, it's really hard not to picture him that way.
Yeah.
I did all the time, no matter what, as a lawman with, badge on his chest or not. I just was like, dude, he just looks insane.
Oh, I mean,
he looks like he couldn't carry a conversation with anybody, a normal conversation at all.
Dude, just the depredations he took part in Lincoln with Selman scouts. It's hard to see him in any other light other than just so psychotic,
Right. And let's think about that, because we had to cover that a little bit when dealing with the Croquet Kid episodes, right? Because around the same time that the supposed wedding celebration, the reason for this photo is being taken, and it supposedly being taken at Tunstall's Ranch on the Felice in front of the schoolhouse. Well, around the exact same time, literally within like a day or two, Selman, Jesse Evans, Jim McDaniels, all that leftover Pepin's crew from the Lincoln County War. Those guys all came through and stole all of Tunstall's horses because the regulators weren't there to protect them. The ranch was in total limbo, and then they went down to Pecos and they burnt George Coe or Frank Coe's other farm over on the Hondo. They burnt that one. I know there was a woman's name in the paper. We covered that they sexually assaulted, Yeah.
Well, and Dudley talks about that in his letters too. It's pretty gruesome.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Misty says he's got one eye looking at you, one eye looking for you. I love that.
That is awesome. That's a
Yeah.
dude. Oh man.
Man,
He's evil looking.
We're at an hour and 4 minutes, and John Larn's about to get married and settle down. I think this is a good time to cut for part 2 if we wanted to separate it into 2 parts.
Sure. I do the same thing, man.
Road. Yeah, we have a long road ahead of us. There's a lot to cover, and really the action hasn't even started yet. And so John Larn and John Selman are fast friends. John has relocated to Shackelford County to partner with John Larn, and they're going to settle in. John Larn already has his sights on a young daughter of a local prominent rancher, and I think that next week we're going to find out all about that marriage and the friendship between Larn and Selman and how it all develops.
All right. I had a quick question. So this Leon Metz called John Larn Selman's evil genius.
Yes.
Do you think, considering when Metz's main timeline for, putting out his books were, do you think he's the one that proposed that idea that John Selman was living a far more quiet lifestyle until he met John Larn? Or I was wondering if there's anything else that we could look at that could really truly back that up. Like, I wonder if any Selman's descendants, any friends or anything talked about the relationship between Larn and Selman. It'd be great if we heard another outlaw talk about, like someone from the outside that could actually see what their relationship was like.
Yeah, and I think some of the residents made that connection and said, things loosely to that effect. And I'll look for it, and maybe we'll make some posts about it. But I don't think Metz was the first to make that connection, and I don't think he was necessarily wrong. I don't think John Larn was as voluminous in his acts as Selman. Like, Selman went on rampages, it seemed like, but Larn, I think, was much more of a sinister, a man of more sinister intent. And I don't think he had any scruples about killing anyone at any time. And I think that's kind of the thing that Selman learned from Larn, is that, hey, if I need to do something, if somebody's in my way, I can just get rid of them, because that's what Larn seemed to do constantly. And so I don't know if Larn would have survived, if he would have been, would he have earned the same reputation as Selman? I don't know, because Larn was really good at putting up that home life facade. He would have always stayed home. He would have always stayed with his wife. He would have been a family man, but at night he would have been the vicious killer. But he always kind of had that split. And I think Selman was too public a bad man to have that. I just don't think it would have been the same, but I do think the evil genius theory that Metz put forth does have some credibility to it. Right.
So maybe definitely Larn had some mental manipulation on Selman's just overall behavior. Yeah, that's very interesting.
Yeah,
very interesting.
John Larn had a way of manipulating a lot of people. I think there was this rancher who recalled that he remembered seeing John Larn, literally seeing him on the range, steal a few of this guy's cattle. So he's there, it's his cattle, and he sees John Larn ride up and steal some. And he doesn't do anything because he's terrified of John Larn. He's heard the stories. And he just lets it happen. And then, so nothing gets done. And later on, like months later, they're in a bar, and this rancher is talking about how he's on hard times. And John Larn comes up to him and puts his arm around him and says, "You know what, buddy, I'm just going to give you $100 right now to kind of help you along." And the rancher says in his recollections, he's like, "I know that $100 was not, that doesn't even cover the cost of the cattle he stole from me, but it still meant a lot to me. And it still made me, like, from that point onward, I could never hate John Larn." And so that's the kind of effect John Larn had on people. Like this guy watched John Larn steal his cattle right in front of him, and to the tune of way more than $100. But later on, John Larn exhibited some camaraderie and gave him $100, having stolen from him prior way more than that. In cattle. But the guy acknowledged, like, I couldn't have hard feelings towards him from then on out. And it was like, that's the kind of power John Larn had, I think.
Yeah, and maybe just the power of intimidation too, because clearly he knew that the rancher knew that he had took his cattle.
Right? No,
so like
100%.
I'm like, yeah, here's your $100, pal.
Isn't that crazy?
That is crazy. I'll tell you what, I'm just kind of, and none of this is like a jumping the gun. I can't wait. He rides with some very cool character names. I'm digging these names, man.
Yeah.
I mean, I can't wait to find out more about George Snow and Doc Hard Times Hearn and Webster Hazlitt. Dude, I love these names, man.
They were no Font Twombly, but
you're right. But he ain't called Hard Times for nothing. I want to know why he's called Hard Times.
That's right. But yeah, I think this, it's amazing what little this hour went by fast, and really, there was very little as far as documented history. We had to cover all the things he said, the myth behind him, but there's a lot in part 2 about the vigilantes, the Tin Hat Brigade, the hanging of horse thieves, and there's a lot going on. So I think we can wrap it up in another episode. We'll see. But
sure,
I really have enjoyed learning about John Larn. And I think
I'm enjoying it too.
Not that he was a good guy, but I think he definitely is a historical figure, should get some more visibility.
I would definitely agree with that. And again, he's running with some well-known names that did get that notoriety. Right.
Yeah.
So it's interesting that he's not a little bit more on the.
That's the crazy thing.
On the front of us for it. Yeah.
Yeah. He totally got just pushed back, and he was like right there with them all.
Right. But you've got some historians out here who believe he may have been responsible for setting John Selman down, an evil path. So he definitely deserves us to talk about him for sure. And you said this was a good place to stop. I agree. And for everyone out there, hope you return next week, because other than these cool names of these outlaws and cattle thieves he runs with, he's also going to come into contact with a very well-known man of our little community, John W. Poe.
Yep.
All right. We'll see you next week.
You'll hear about John Meadows as well.
Oh, that's right. So people who had some big connections in Lincoln County, New Mexico, and were personal friends with Pat Garrett. So very interesting.
Yeah. So for everyone here at Forever West, I'm Font Twombly. And this is Das Boot wishing you a wonderful evening.
We'll see you next week.